I don't know what you're looking at. Why don't we just start the show? Let's do it. I don't know what you're looking at. Why don't we just start the show?
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. And tonight, well, it's interesting. We're in another one of those nights, those days where we're not in between news stories, but there's things that are slowly starting to chin up. And as I read through the news all day, what I start to see is that there's starting to be some collusion, some signs of collusion, which we all knew was there, with the DNC, Feinstein, Loretta Lynch, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, all these people that were involved in this Tarmac incident where the Attorney General spoke to Bill Clinton. So that's kind of starting to spin up a little bit. Well, at the same time, it's very interesting because Mitch McConnell is a little upset because the president wants the Republicans to do their work. So we're going to talk about all this stuff and how it relates together, and how these people are all under the same illusion that they don't have to do work for a living, and they're not under the same rules and regulations that we serve. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, so I'm reading all you guys as you get in here and start going. Now we got great numbers right now, incredible numbers actually. So if you're watching right now, don't tune out, stay tuned in, and with the exception of still don't know what YouTube in this live video. I don't get any. I got 7 people watching on YouTube, 7 lonely people. I love y'all, YouTube. So, but if you're watching right now on Twitter or on Facebook, just stay there. Okay, don't go anywhere. We're going to discuss some things that are, I think, are going to be very telling to you as the stories start to unfold and you start to see these things in the news as they progress. So that's what I want you all to, just concentrate on. If you've never watched this show before, if you're just tuning in, if you watch it all the time, let's just talk about some things that over the next week or 2 weeks or month you'll be able to kind of key in on a little bit, and hopefully you'll see what this show's all about. Now, I didn't put some stuff up here on the show title that we're going to talk about tonight. One of the things that I've been talking a lot about, and I'm really pleased that the numbers are up tonight, because one of the things that I brought up last Friday was this constitutional quick reaction force. I don't know. I did the whole thing on the fly Friday night, and it just started rolling to me. But this is the way, listen, do I have learning disability? I don't know. I don't know if you could call it a learning disability. I'm not the brightest stick in the candle, in the block. I don't know what you want, in the crayon box. But I have certain talents, and some of those talents are, once my brain keys in on something and it starts rolling, the ideas can really pop, and I can really get a good idea for what I need to do. And if you know the person that I am, I bring things to fruition, and I normally get things done. So that's the good side of this. So Friday night, this stuff is rolling out of my head because on LinkedIn, and I know most people don't want to go on LinkedIn and get into arguments. Maybe it was a bad choice of where to start this thing, but nonetheless, some people did show up, and it had the right effect. It shut these people down that continued to spew this communistic, globalistic, social justice warrior type of mindset. They're spreading it all over LinkedIn, and it really makes LinkedIn uncomfortable. About as bad as I don't understand people putting pictures of themselves half naked on LinkedIn. I mean, I don't unless that's their talent. I don't know, that's their skill set. I don't get that on LinkedIn, but listen, and other people putting selfies, even guys do it. I see guys all the time with their shirts off on LinkedIn. I don't know, strange. But anyway, so I wanted to go through this a little bit further before I get started in the show tonight, because there's something that I think people are missing that we should be taking away from this. By the way, you can see in my picture here tonight, this is the first presentation of the back scratcher. Yes, that's right. This is an original Chinatown back scratcher from New York City. As you can see, it's so well used, they actually broke one of these things off. But I don't know. I just accidentally had that in the camera, so it's there. So anyway, get back to this. So what I want to do with this constitutional quick reaction force, the QRF, as you say. Those of you who don't know what a QRF is, that's a standby. If you ever saw Lone Survivor, when Marcus Luttrell and the rest of the men were going in to do this target, there was a QRF, a quick reaction force, that was on standby, and if anything happened, then they were to deploy rapidly into that area as a force multiplier to win the fight and get guys out of the fight if need be. So that's what I think you all need to be. I think all these people that tune into this show, and the people that call themselves patriots, and the people that are concerned about the Constitution, I've had multiple conversations with people. I mean, literally hundreds of conversations with people about the reality of that they see things. It's not just, see, the great thing about last year in the campaign process was that those forces that are responsible for the degradation of this country, and by and large also responsible for the management of this country, are had to show themselves, and they've become so emboldened that they have no problem whatsoever showing themselves. Now, I was going to show a video tonight that Barry Morgenstein put up on Facebook yesterday, but I'm going to save that until tomorrow, maybe even Thursday, of Ashley Judd. I don't know if you all have seen this, but it's a disgusting display of narcissistic social justice warrior tears, where this woman has completely flipped off her rocker, and she lives in a world that I don't know. She wasn't raised in this world. I know because she's from the South. She wasn't raised in a world where when you go through an airport, I think it was Atlanta or somewhere in the South, and the TSA guy says, hello, sweetie, and it says, ask her to do something. Well, that's just the way people talk in the South, and she took real offense to it. Anyway, yes, she's as nuts as Planter's peanuts. So we'll cover that later, but this is a perfect example of these people. They have no problem displaying their leftist ideologies. Even people like Mitch McConnell, who, when I read this story to you, it's going to make you be like, scratch your head like, why would these people say this if they're trying to live a lie? Well, that's because they're not concerned about you, and truly they get offended when people don't react the way they want them to. Chris Christie's another perfect example of these types of people that live in some kind of fantasy world where he thinks because he has security, he can go around getting in people's faces at a baseball game. Listen, I probably would have gotten put in jail, because if he'd gotten in my face like he did, those nachos would have been all over his big round head, because I would not have played that game at all. And I've never liked Chris Christie. I don't like the way, look, people can say whatever they want about the president and about how he, they say bullies. President Trump doesn't bully people. President Trump doesn't allow people to walk all over him. And that's a completely different story. I've never seen him bully anybody. I've never seen him specifically go after somebody just to call them an idiot. And that's what Chris Christie does. Chris Christie is a bully, and he's a loudmouth, and he doesn't respect people. You can see it not only by the way he talks about him, but the way he disrespects his state and goes out and sits on a beach that's closed to everybody else with his family because he has special rights, and also because the traffic was so bad during that holiday, he was taking the private or the state police helicopter back and forth to the beach. Right. So where am I going with all this stuff? Okay. You, the patriots, the people out there that care about this country, the people that are having dialogue and do want to see something happen, you have to realize, folks, that what you feel is not odd. What you feel is not wrong. If you take a step back and you look at the reality of what's happening in this country, and again, I don't discriminate between liberals and conservatives. I see liberals saying the same thing. I'm not talking about leftists. I'm talking about people that just see they're big into social programs, and they're like free college and these things. You know, they still see something wrong. They see something odd about what's going on. They may not like President Trump. They may not agree with all the things that conservatives have to say, but by and large, there are liberals out there that do see that something is going on. So this message is for everybody. But patriots, I don't care where you stand. If you love this country and you feel like, and you see this stuff that's going on, you need to listen up and you need to take part in this. I was trying to get people to get together in small groups. This is the idea I came up with. Like, let's say 20 people. The majority of people that come on this show and that go on other shows, whether it be Twitter or they team up on certain things when they see a picture that a meme that they like, you'll see the same people that are responding quite often. What I want to see is groups of people communicating with each other. I know in Twitter you can go into the direct message, you can get groups of people together into a group message. The same thing with Messenger on Facebook. And although those, I don't trust those to be privatized, and recommend that whenever you do anything on Twitter or Facebook, you might as well consider, hundreds of little tech geeks looking at what you're doing. But I don't care. I don't care if they know. In fact, I think we have such a mighty, overwhelming force that the sooner we realize it, it won't matter even if we project what we're going to do. They won't be able to stand in front of us with the mighty force it will bring to them. So forget about the LinkedIn thing. I do think that the way we are going to unite this country is not by uniting 65 million people, which is basically who voted for Trump. What we're going to do is unite small groups of people that will communicate, small groups of people that do have similar interests. Some people like Twitter. Some people like Facebook. Some people like to respond to memes, while other people like to take act. And when I say respond to memes, they like to heart the memes, or they like to go on and make a comment, but don't like to get into the direct arguments with people. Others thrive on that. What we need to do is we need to figure out who's good at what, and then we put together small, quick reaction forces. Now, this isn't just about an online group of people to go and defend the Constitution online. However, this is the truth of the matter. I've made friends that are thousands of miles away, and I've never even met them, but I know for a fact. If I had to call on Roxanne, for instance, it would be no different than if I called on Michael Jack, or if I called on Jim DeLong and Stephanie or Maureen. I know that if I call on these people, I know obviously that Craig, who went out and approached Viral Hog and put the smackdown on him, I know we can count on him, and I've never even met Craig. So that different people are good at different things. So we have to figure out how these groups can be divvied up. And here's the magical thing about this. Different people are good at different things. We know that patriotic people can count on patriotic people. I see it. I feel it. I've experienced it through donations, through equipment being brought here for me, through the fact that I've gone to D.C. and met with people, or gone across the country and had Norma or Meredith or any of these other people that hosted me along the way and treated me like a true American and were interested in planting seeds across the country. Patriots back up patriots. But we're thousands of miles apart. And by and large, people are freaked out about doing certain things because they're worried that there's going to be repercussions. So we have to be smart about it. I don't have anything to lose, okay? I don't have a bunch of kids running around. I determined a year and a half ago that this is what I was going to do, and this was going to be my drive and my determination in uniting the people in this country, was by starting off with this new social media platform, which was Facebook Live. YouTube already had it, but I didn't really know how to use YouTube at that point. And it progressed now where we're broadcasting across, right now at this point, 3 different platforms. But the whole goal was not to just simply get up here and talk about the news. The goal was to inform everyone, bring experts on, and unite people through dialogue. So here is what I want you all to do. Again, don't leave this conversation if you're listening to this, even if you're liberal. Just listen. I want you all to figure out how you want to participate in this. And I want you to say that if it's 9 o'clock at night, or if it's 7 o'clock in the morning, you're just getting ready to go to work, and somebody writes your group and says, we got an issue here. We got somebody spreading lies on Twitter or on Facebook, and we need to get a group of people together and go after them and slam them. Or I read this article on Media Matters that's a complete lie about Sean Hannity, something like that. Because they're still trying to go after Sean. So you get a group of people and you go over there and you look for the comment section and you just start going crazy on that thing. And you start going to task with these people. They will lose it. These leftists, excuse me, these leftists will lose it. That's what I get for eating almonds again. I've got a problem with eating almonds before I come on the show. These leftists will lose it. Okay, so we are in a position, folks, where if we don't learn how to start working together, we are going to be consistently consumed by the left. We're being indoctrinated to accept a little bit more, accept a little bit more, accept a little bit more. And so if we don't start learning to, one, identify what's happening, and two, unite and go after these lies and the vitriol and try to reverse this indoctrination. If we don't do that, it's going to go way further pretty soon from just arguments online. What you saw last year at the beginning of this year with these protests is just the beginning, folks. Black Lives Matter, which is a terrorist group, has been given well over $100 million by George Soros funded companies. That's going to continue. And it's not just Black Lives Matter. There's other groups as well. This is my singer's voice that I got from Maureen, provided me with that. So, in a nutshell, this is what we have to start doing. Whether it be online, whether it be small groups like happened in Washington, D.C. a week ago, whether it be getting people together and going and standing in front of somebody like Mitch McConnell's office, whatever it is, whatever you feel like your group is better at doing, you need to start getting people together, identifying what's going on, put the message out, and allowing people to respond. And here's the other thing, folks. You can't just sit there and say, I'm angry about this country. I don't like what's going on. I see something happening. Listen, time for you to sit back and analyze is over with. Last year, we were given a gift from God himself. He said, I'm going to put the pressure on these people, and when they react, you're going to have a limited amount of time to see the reality of what's going on, what their motivation is, and how determined the left is. I truly believe that. Now, that happened, and you had that opportunity. Now, the analyzation is over with. We know who these people are. We know how they react. We know how much money they have. We know how much they hate the Constitution, hate the president, hate us, hate freedom, hate America. These are Americans that hate America. And you can start to see the way they're starting to change things. I just read an article. I may speak about this tomorrow on One American News. I'm not sure yet what we're going to cover, but all these tech gurus think that they're going to go out and run for president or start political parties or do all these different things. Listen, nothing could be more dangerous because these people are very detail oriented. They have a lot of money and no time in service to the country. And that's a problem. They got money, they got ideas, they're detail-oriented, but they don't understand the reality of what freedom is. They don't understand the reality of fairness. They don't understand the true reality of equality. Equality has nothing to do in preventing other people from not liking you. Equality is something that is set in motion. It's ensured freedoms that will allow you to be the best you can be despite what the other person feels about you. You can't control what other people feel, unless I guess you live in Canada, where now you have to call transgender people by the right names. Otherwise, you could be charged with a crime. Yes, that's true up in Canada. So, American patriots, you're smart enough to see what's going on. You're smart enough to identify what's going on. You're smart enough to understand the reality of the subversion that's going on in this country. But being smart isn't enough. You have to learn to act. We have to learn to act together. and the time is now. So again, get with your friends that you have online. Set up a thing that you see these people regularly. Set up a direct message on Twitter or on Messenger on Facebook. Start talking to each other, saying, I think we're on to something here. I think we can identify places where these individuals pop up, do their dirty work, and then they pop back off, and we can go after them there. Or they're dominating this area. You know, when somebody that we enjoy listening to that tells the truth about something, says something online, and you can go and look at, like every time I say something controversial on Sean Hannity's show, it'll Media Matters will repeat it, and then you'll see all this hatred down below. You're not going to change the way those people think, but this is training for you. One of the things that I've taught to many, many people throughout the years, when it comes to terrorism awareness and learning how to avoid being caught up in attack, and if you are, how to handle it. One of the things that I try to teach people is that if you wait until you drop your kids off and then drive away and think, man, I hope there's not a terrorist attack here. I wonder what the threat is. It's too late. It's like when you leave and you leave your home and you're like, you get to work and you say, I wonder if I left a burner on the stove. It's too late. You're already at work. You're going to have to drive back home and go through all this stuff. You have to forward think things. You have to train your mind, and you have to do it long before you get into that predicament. You know, leaving the stove on. If you're a forgetful person, I'm forgetful sometimes. I didn't leave it on purpose. I was in such a hurry cooking my breakfast, and I turned the burner the wrong way. So it was on extremely low, which is even, I think, more dangerous probably, because if the fire goes out and there's gas coming and then it sparks, boom, could blow up. And that was a stupid mistake. I made that mistake once, and then for 4 months, I had on my door a Post-it right above where my lock was when I'd leave, and it said stove off, and I'd go turn around and double check it before I left. In officer candidate school, Gunnery Sergeant Crouch, retired as First Sergeant Crouch, United States Marine Corps, taught us that, we would have to round robin. Everybody in the room, round robin, would go through. It'd be 4 of us in a room that we'd all check the lockers 4 times to make sure that they were locked. That's because we knew and we had a plan to prepare long beforehand. If you wait until the day when you're caught up in an attack, you could very well die because of your lack of training and understanding and awareness and forward thinking. And it's the same thing here, folks. If you, the American patriots in this country, don't start working together and forward thinking what's going to happen, and it's not that hard. This is not rocket science. One thing I can definitely tell you from serving in the FBI and sitting on a plane as an air marshal is that criminals, once they get comfortable, become very stupid. A lot of criminals are very smart. But once they get comfortable, they become lazy and they become stupid, and they allow law enforcement to identify where they're doing things wrong. Well, in D.C., that exact thing is happening. The difference is the Department of Justice, the FBI, I'm talking about the executives, not talking about the agents that work in the FBI, but the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, this Congress, the Senate, many people that work in the White House, the Supreme Court, and on, have been subverted and corrupted. And so they're not going to react the way authorities should react. So that's where you come in. You start off by training, by going after people as groups, knowing that you're going to go after somebody together before you do it. You don't just show up and say, hey, I'm going to jump in this fight like a mosh pit. You get together, you talk about it. You say, this is happening right now. Let's get together. And you go online and start going after these people with truth bombs. And what that's going to do is train your minds to work together. And then, let's say one of these congressmen or senators do something stupid, which happens about every week. Let's say you're just completely fed up with this healthcare nonsense that's causing so much pain and suffering for people who are stuck in the middle. Had it, don't have it, want it, can't afford it. You're mad about the North Korea issue. Why aren't we getting on that? Why isn't something being done? You're mad about McMaster. You're mad about McConnell. You can't stand Pelosi. You're tired of the United States being ripped to shreds by its own politicians and corrupt judges and nefarious mayors. You live in a sanctuary city, and maybe you find out after doing this online, you find out, hey, there's like 40 of us in the same group. So then what do? You get those 40 people together that have been consistently going after people that are telling lies about the Constitution, about the way of life, about the president, about these things. You've been consistently going about them. You've been training together. And then you step off and you go down to the mayor's office and you stand in front of that door and say, we're not going anywhere until the mayor admits that he's obstructing justice or that he's harboring felons. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But you can't do any of that unless you have at least had the dialogue of working together. And in the case of social media, where you don't even have to get off your couch to learn to work together, you can actually train your minds, patriots, to know how to move left and move right and how to do these things. I mean, listen, I would even suggest, I don't want to suggest this because people are going to think I'm some kind of prepper and I'm out there. But, you know, Remo, for instance, when I stayed over at Remo's place for a couple days when I was on my road trip, and he and his family get on, several people from his family, every couple nights they get online and play video games together. If that's what you have to do just to get your mind working together as a team, do it. You don't have to get off your couch. You don't have to, you can still crack your beer or play your video game or do whatever. If Twitter's your thing, you can still have your wine at night and work your Twitter. You're just doing it together as a group. What you will be doing is you will be training yourself, and you will be training yourself to work in a group, and the groups will be training to work together. And before long, in a year or in 2 years or in 4 years, you will have literally thousands, millions, who knows, of people that are used to working together in groups. Right now, you don't have it. This dialogue that you guys have every night on this show is just about all you get when it comes. I mean, let's be honest. It's about all you get when it comes to working together as in a group with people that you may or may not know. Am I right or am I wrong? Give me some thumbs up if I'm right. I know I'm right. I don't have to have thumbs up. But that's the reality. Everybody needs to start participating that cares about this country. We may not solve any problems going after these people. I doubt we will. We won't change any of their hearts. We're not going to plant seeds in social justice warriors. But what we are going to do is start learning to work together. If we don't do that, folks, I can't say this enough. If we don't do this, when it comes time, if it gets worse, you're not going to know what to do. One of the things I talk about in this book that I'm almost finished writing, and hopefully will be out for pre-sales here pretty soon. And the day will come when I'll tell everybody about that. One of the things I talk about in there is the fact that if you were to turn the power off in one of these cities, let's say it happened on a whole eastern coast, experts say you have 3 days. 3 days before chaos ensues. And within a week, people will start fighting for their lives. Within 2 weeks, people will be dead all over the place, and it'll be like a war zone, even before 2 weeks. Even if the whole other side of the country is living fine. Can you imagine, folks, if that happened? How would you be prepared? Who would you call? How do you know how to react? You see, there's aspects of your life that you take for granted. You live in a big city and something happens, who do you call? You call 911 and then you sit and wait. You live in Texas, I tell you who you call. You go, tally-hoo-hoo, and you reach in your safe and you pull out your gun. And you protect yourself. Arkansas is the same way. Constitutional carry in Arkansas. You're not going to have that in Chicago or New York. You're being taught to be helpless. You're learning helplessness. I live in New York City. I don't know but one or two of my neighbors, although I'm like the mayor of my building. But you don't know your neighbors in New York City. Why is that? When you're in the most populated areas, do you not know your neighbors? Because throughout the years, we have been taught that's not appropriate. Don't know your neighbors. Keep to yourself. Do what you're told. That's truth. So we have to start organizing our minds and ourselves and groups of us together where we think effectively, where we look at things and say, that's not right. That's the reality, folks. Now, before the numbers start dwindling, because they're really good tonight, and I'm glad I got the chance to get that message out. Look, I can't do all this on my own. I can't. I can't go out, and this isn't some show. You want to get the news. You want somebody to read the headlines. Either turn the TV on or go find Bill Mitchell or somebody like that. They're going to read headlines. They're going to have people on there that talk about stuff that, they're just talking heads. That's not what this show is all about. If there were more headlines today, I'd go and get Scott Eulinger, who was a SEAL, or my buddy Ron Bellum, Scott Eulinger, who was a CIA operations officer, Ron Bellum, who was a SEAL, or Michael Jack, who's an FBI agent. I was an FBI agent. I was a SEAL. So if we have something we can talk about, I'll get these experts for you. But what I'm talking about tonight, you're the expert. If you're looking for somebody to read the headlines, you're going to have to go somewhere else. I'll never read headlines. That's not what I do on this show. We inform you of reality of what's going on behind the headlines. But also, this show is about uniting the people and uniting the patriots. And that is what you have to do. We have to start working together. So I'm glad that everybody has tuned in tonight. You see right there going across the screen, the GoFund.me/The Experts Roadshow. I've gotten, last night, CJ Leibold, I can't thank you enough, donated $1,000. Eleanor has hit that level several times. I'm not calling these people out to make them feel embarrassed or anything, but or to challenge other people. But this is how serious some people are taking it. But it doesn't have to be $1,000. It could be $20. It could be, yesterday one of the individuals jumped up and immediately donated $30 when I said if we had 100 people that donated $30 every month to this, we would be able to fund this show and keep it going with no problem whatsoever. Somebody immediately jumped up and donated $30. I mean, you see, folks, the reality of this whole thing and the GoFundMe page and coming on this show and trying to unite people, the reality with this, and that was Thomas Claxton that did that yesterday. The reality with what we're doing here, hold on one second. The reality of what we're doing here, folks, is much larger than just an internet show where I read the headlines or give opinions. This is the beginning, I truly believe, of a movement of patriots and American citizens that see something's going on and they have no voice in Washington, D.C. They have no voice in media. They have no voice anywhere that power is being held. And what we're doing right here is we are organizing people so that they have one voice. So many people can stand together and have one voice. Sounds crazy. Sounds like I have delusions of grandeur. But that's not the facts, folks. I've seen it. It's not. I'm not feeling something that's not true. What happened in Washington, D.C. a week and a half ago, that was real. When I've gone on the road and I see people get together and tears are flowing down their eyes because they're scared for their children, that is real. Multiple cities I've gone to and discussed this stuff with people, sometimes 3 people, sometimes hundreds. And they all say the same thing. They're worried. And they're worried because it's going faster than they ever imagined. And they're worried because there's nothing that they feel like they can do. And you know what? They're right. There's nothing that you can do. But there is a tremendous amount that we can do. And if we organize, the first thing you got to do before you take action is learn to organize. The way you organize is through dialogue. So we've already identified the enemy. We really don't have to worry about that whole part. If we're building a target package, the enemy is identified. Who the enemy is, why they feel the way they do, and why they're doing what they're doing is totally apparent. That part of the target package is already there. We don't have to work on that. How they're going about what they're doing, that is also quite apparent, even for the most unseasoned, untactical civilian who's never been in government, never had to be affected by any of this stuff. You all see what's going on. So if we're building a tactical, a target package, we're already seeing the multiples of these steps. So what you're getting through this show, and hopefully through this idea of the CQRF, the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force. I don't know. If you don't like it, we can call it whatever. I don't really care. That's just something I came up with because it'd be an easy hashtag. What we're doing through this is we are slowly gaining numbers and gaining unity, and slowly we are starting to have one voice. The we. It's a small voice. I wouldn't even say it's a whisper yet. It's more like something you hear in the wind. You're like, did I hear that? But it's a voice. And just like a wind, remember, I don't know if you've ever heard this story, the butterfly effect. The butterfly flutters, which causes a deer to scamper, which causes a branch to fall in a tree, which causes birds to fly, which causes all these things, and eventually it causes a massive wind. That's the butterfly effect. Do you realize that right now on this show, and it's being broadcast on 3 different channels on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, do you realize that right now we have about as many people as it took to start this country? Think about that, folks. That should make whoever is watching this show pause for a few seconds. About 130 people on Facebook, about 50 people on Twitter. Sad. 15 people on YouTube. Okay. You're looking at 200 people. That's about as many people that sat down and said, we need to make this country. And probably even fewer than that, really, that actually did the work. That should make you pause. Those individuals 241 years ago determined this is what they wanted to do, and they rallied against an entire monarchy that had been in place for a lot longer than this country. They did it without technology that we have now. They did it without the ability to communicate over thousands of miles just like that. They wanted to have this conversation. They have to do it in ink and then send some guy off on a horse to go ride and deliver the message and then wait for that to come back. We don't have to do that. So if they did it 241 years ago when they fought against tyranny, why in the world is it so difficult to get Americans up off their ass and start fighting what's going on? I really want to know. Are we just going to sit and allow this stuff to wash over us like the Jews in Germany who were led without protesting to trains that took them to concentration camps where they were burned alive? At what point is the American public going to say enough is enough? Mitch McConnell, I don't give a crap what you think. The president is pushing you all, and that's what he's all upset about, because he says the president has unrealistic expectations because he's a because he's never been a politician before. I don't care what Mitch McConnell thinks. Mitch McConnell lives in a completely different world and society. He lives by different rules than we live by. He lives in a world where if they get it done, they get it done, and if they don't, they don't. That's not the world that we live in. I don't care what he thinks. John McCain, the best thing that could ever happen was he got brain cancer. I hate to say it. I'm not a mean person. I'm a vicious person. We need John McCain gone from this nation. And I don't look at these individuals that call themselves Republicans any differently than the way I look at Nancy Pelosi or any of these other Democrats or leftists, these Hollywood types, any of these people that want to do this country wrong. I don't care what they have to say. I only care about what you have to say. So this is the opportunity that we have to start uniting, and this is what has to happen. Because if we don't figure this out and we don't stop being so unbelievably lazy, listen, people, I gave up. I left the FBI in 2000, the beginning of 2013, right at the end of, it was December actually, but because there was a hurricane, it delayed my exit from the Bureau. But it was right around January of 2013. I left the FBI. I remember October 30th of 2012. I put in my resignation, and I can't tell you how happy I was. And I did it because my honor was at stake. I knew something was broken in the Bureau long before all this stuff with Comey and all this nonsense. I knew something was broken there. Nothing ever got done. Arrests were made, didn't change a single thing. Every terrorism case that we worked where we got the bad guy was because somebody told us about him. It wasn't that we went out and actively searched for these people. It was because of an arrest and it flipped this way or flipped that way. But it wasn't because we're forward-thinking things. It wasn't because people are out there actively hunting like they try to make it sound like. That wasn't going on. All because of political numbers. This thing that I have going on now is a huge burden on me. This effort that I put into this show every night is a huge burden because my career is floundering in a lot of ways. But once I set my mind to something, I will not stop until it's finished or until I discover that it's just not what I thought it was going to be. And I challenge you all to do the same thing. I challenge you, figure out what it is that you think you can do to make a difference and stop just coming home and being angry, because I can guarantee you in Germany in World War II, I can guarantee you there were Jews that knew something was happening and they were like, this is nonsense. We need to do something. And people just didn't react to that. Germans didn't react to it. I'm sure there were German citizens that were saying, we can't just take people out of their communities and put them on trains. I don't care what they believe in. We can't do that. I'm sure there were people that believed that, but they didn't do anything. And so here we are in the same exact place. 60 years. We're not talking about a long time, 60 years. We're not talking about thousands of years ago. We're talking about 60 years. People were being burned alive. And they marched themselves to the train. So, don't just laugh this off. Don't just get off here tonight and say, CQRF, whatever that guy is. It's a great show, you know, we love his passion. He's doing great things. I can't do this alone. It's not about me. I gave this example before. If I go to war. Just me. If the country says, we need you, Gillum, you're going to war, and they send me to the Middle East, I'm going to get killed, is what will happen. But if they take 1,000 people that are trained like me, that have my heart, love this country, love freedom, and believe that there's an enemy over there that needs to be crushed, and there is, I can guarantee you we'll win, because there's no spirit like the American spirit. And the same thing is happening here. I can't stop what's going on in Washington, D.C. or in the media alone. It's going to take thousands of people, thousands, standing together. Right now we got about 200. We need thousands. We need millions standing together. Otherwise, folks, you might as well, tonight when you put your children to bed, or if your children are grown, or heaven forbid they're in the military, you might as well call them tonight or kiss them goodnight tonight and say, I really, really want to apologize to you because we've effed up your future. And pretty much it's just because we don't feel like fighting. Go ahead. I dare you. If you're not going to get into this, that's what you should do. Just go ahead and accept it. Tell them you're going to have a terrible time when you're an adult. And by and large, it's because the generations before us didn't do anything to stop it, and we're not going to do anything either. It's just the way things are. But I hope you have sweet dreams, and God bless you. And then go to bed. At least you'll have that off your conscience. At least you'll have that off your conscience. And here's what I'm seeing on all these comments. People are saying there's more of them than there are us. I'm seeing people say no one will stand together, which I agree with you, Lisa. There's a problem. She said she's asked people and no one will do it. It's true. It's true. On large numbers, yes, that's true. But I think, Lisa, and whoever else was saying this stuff, I think that we have enough people to start a grassroots group, or see, I'm not good at this stuff. I may be a motivator and a speaker, and you give me the helm and I can sit on top of it and say, okay, we need to do this, 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 and this. And I'll say, who's got an expertise in these things? And we'll get together. We'll figure it out. I've got that talent. Okay. I don't have the talent. I don't know how to start a grassroots campaign. I don't know how to start a nonprofit action committee. I don't know how to do those things. If you do, direct message me. We'll get it going. This is how it will work. Michael Jack is correct. Start small. Again, our country was founded by less people than are online right now watching this show. Elizabeth says people aren't willing to sacrifice. And they're afraid of Twitter battle. That's correct. But if different groups of people are maneuvering, you need to realize two things. One, different groups maneuvering and not communicating, that's a bad thing. I know right now, if they called up every SEAL that's alive, that's in service or not, and they said, we need, and this East Coast, West Coast doesn't matter, Dev Group doesn't matter, whatever they want to call the rest of the teams. I don't agree with that nonsense, but whatever. They called us all up and they said, okay, listen, we're calling you all up because we need your expertise and we want you to get together and we're going to put you in Afghanistan. We want you to crush this. Well, give us a month or a couple months. Some of us will be slower and out of shape. You could even bring old Billy Allman, people who are sick, and they could serve a purpose. And I can guarantee you, no matter which coast we were trained on, no matter how old or how young we are, we could get together and we could get it done. Why? Because we have the training, we have the knowledge, we have the experience, and we have the understanding of how to decipher the information and crush the enemy. We have a long ways to go for that. But the point is, there's not millions of SEALs. There's a small number of us. We're just really good at what we do. And I'm telling you, folks, with the numbers that we have now, we could change the world. But you have to take it step by step. So, if you know how to start these things, get offline with me, direct message me. Go, if you don't want to do it on Facebook or Twitter, you can go to jonathantgilliam.com, and it's got an area on there where you can send me a message. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But we can start coordinating it. This is basically my full-time job, is working, doing this show, going traveling, meeting everybody, taking care of Rico. Which I'm going to explain that in just a second. George Soros. Somebody just brought him up, for instance. So we have almost 200 people here. Do you realize if 200 people consistently tweeted Donald Trump at 2 a.m., do you know that he would get that message? At 2 a.m., set your alarm tonight for 2 a.m. Okay, here's something that you want to do this. Let's do this. I don't know how many people on Facebook are on Twitter. But I know on Facebook, he also has a Facebook account, but I'm pretty sure the president monitors his Twitter account more than anything else. 2 in the morning, set your alarm. Set your alarm. And wake up and tweet out, Mr. President, we the people demand that you go after George Soros. And if we do that every night, 200 people every night for a month, I can guarantee you he's going to get that message. They're going to say, man, every night, 2 o'clock, there's freaking hundreds of people coming up, texting or tweeting you saying, go after George Soros. Do you see what I'm saying? If you do it, you're going to think, you're probably going to come up on the Secret Service radar saying this guy's some kind of fruitcake. But if we do it together as a group, there's going to be a big difference. Now, rather than go through all this other stuff that I had tonight, I will just say this. Jay Sekulow. Does anybody have any questions before I go on? Anybody have any questions? See, here's what I like. I like that people are starting to call out and saying, we need help here, we need help there. If you all continue to come on this show and watch and partake in the dialogue and communicate offline, those people will start to pop up. I know it seems like, folks, listen to me. I know it seems like nobody's really interested, like Lisa was talking about a minute ago and Elizabeth. But here's the reality. And by the way, Elizabeth, I worked for a week on the White House comment line. Nobody monitors that at all. They just take numbers on stuff that doesn't do anything. Think about the fact that right now, over this entirety of this show, we've had almost 200 people watching. And I know on an average we have at least 60 to 100. That's 60 to 100 people that are willing to at least show up here every night. Think about that. If that's 60 or 100 people that do this every night. And by the way, Ralph Randolph, why are you calling me during the show? You know what? I am going to play you something here real quick. Now that I know that Ralph is on there. But I want you all to just think about that real quick. Hold on a second. Let me add this real quick. I'm all over the place, folks. Hold on. Oh, my gosh. Hold on a second here. Stay with me. Don't leave this. If you don't leave it. Where is it here? Stand by. I got to send it over here. Hold on. The modern day technology is amazing. All right, hold on. Here it is. Let me send it over to my computer. All right, hold on. Stand by. All right. There it is. Got it? Ralph, you're going to like this. Let's see how many people will lose while I'm doing this. All right, you ready for this, folks?
I don't know.
That's upside down. All right, hold on a second.
Who invented donuts, but God bless them. These are awesome. And coffee.
So you really like watching people, Jonathan?
Right.
Only when they're doing bad stuff.
What the heck is wrong with this thing? Hold on.
Is that it? We got enough donut footage now, huh?
Yeah.
There it goes. All right, I'm going to play it again so you can see it. Hold on. Hold on. You'll be able to see it all in one spot. Okay, here you go.
I don't know who invented donuts, but God bless them. These are awesome. And coffee.
So you really like watching people, Jonathan?
Only when they're doing bad stuff.
Of course.
Is that it? We got enough donut footage now, huh?
Yeah.
That was a little thing that Ralph and I did. I don't know why they wanted me to. Oh, because I used to be a cop, so they had me filming with donuts for some strange reason. But anyway, so that was completely had nothing to do with what I'm talking about tonight. But hey, that's the fun of this show. I can go bounce all over the place. We don't have to worry about sponsors. Although, if you want to sponsor this show, feel free. So, all right. As far as if you have questions about this, CQRF, get me offline. If you want to look into getting a grassroots thing or some kind of action committee group together, I think I'm more than happy to be a part of that. I'm not good at doing those things. I don't know how to get those things started. Rather than me spending a year trying to figure it out, if you know how to do it, let's get it going. Now, as far as the stuff that I wrote that I was going to talk about today, Jay Sekulow has been covering stuff with all these different people from the DNC that were involved with this meeting on the tarmac between Lynch and Bill Clinton. There's going to be more coming out about that. Mitch McConnell, all you got to know is Mitch McConnell, if you don't want if you take the job, you should be getting the job done. He's complaining because president's putting pressure on about health care. Well, they had 7 freaking years to get a health care bill ready to hand the president when he came in. But not only did they didn't want president to win, they didn't want Trump to win. They wanted Clinton to win. Yes, I'm talking about Republicans, because their pockets have been filled so deeply because of their constituents that are in the insurance field and in the medical field that that's why they're running scared. They don't want to change it. They know if they change it, their big money donors are going to be ticked off. That's the whole truth about this nonsense. It has nothing about whether or not they can identify what's fair for people. They don't want to change Obamacare, because Obamacare had nothing to do with people getting insurance. It had to do with power and money and constituents. You see, folks, what I'm talking about here is the Republican Party is full of incredible people. Michael Jack, all these people that I spoke to across the country. But the National Republican Party establishment members are guilty of treason to the to the conservative people in this country. They have stabbed you in the back. And they work in collusion with communists. They're no different than George Soros, who was Jewish, who was working for the Nazis in World War II. The Republicans at the top of the Republican Party that work with the Democratic Party are no different. In fact, they're just as dirty as George Soros, and they would just as fast sell you down the river as anybody else. So I don't care what Mitch McConnell says. He talks weird anyway. What's wrong with his mouth? Next thing Trump needs to do is fire his wife. I don't care if she does a good job. She doesn't need to be working in. And I know, look, if you don't think that was done for political reasons, I give the president props for doing this stuff. If he's the man that I think he is, it's got to turn his stomach when he has to do this stuff and say, oh, you have to play those games. That had to be a hard one. That had to be a real hard one. Listen, President Trump, if you're listening, we're behind you. We just don't trust any of these people up there. And you're like one of those cows that gets pulled up into a tornado and flipped all over the place. You're spinning around in a world of hurt up there. Now, real quick before the numbers go down, because the numbers already started to decrease. Don't leave the show yet. I want to give you guys the Rico story here. And this would be a good place to leave the show for tonight. My good buddy Rico, I took him to the doctor today. That's where I was all day. I went and finished writing on my book while Rico was at the doctor. They had to shave his belly and do an ultrasound. And what they found was that he has what they believe is a benign tumor next to his pituitary gland. I may be wrong about that, but I think that's what it is. And that is causing his cortisol levels to be all over the place. That's why he has had decreased muscle tone. That's why he's weaker, a little confused. And so there's a way that they can treat that. So they had to take blood in order to, for an hour, and they had to put some kind of fluid in him to determine the levels of his cortisol, and then they'll give him medication, and that should help with that. That he should I don't know enough about it, but by the way the vet was describing it to me, he should regain some of his muscle mass. He should feel a lot better, and so I'm really looking forward to the next month to see how this turns out. Now, unfortunately, and here's the bad news, they did find a tumor that's encapsulated in his liver. And it's not a giant tumor. And the vet says the type of tumor that they think it is a very slow growing tumor. And but here's the problem, folks. If he was a young dog, they could go in and take that out. If it was something next to his pituitary gland, they could go in and take that out. The dog is 17 years old, 17 and 2 months old now. He has slowly battled congestive heart failure, doing pretty well with that. And he's had a heart murmur his entire life. He was on medication for thrombocytopenia in 2004 when he was 4 years old. And so a lot of this stuff has caused him, I think, later medical problems. Is probably where his liver has been harmed, because he was on prednisone and all these other drugs for a long time. Imuran, which is another type of drug that he took for, it's like a chemotherapy type drug. I have a great buddy who was a lieutenant with the captain, with the NYPD, that died from the same disease. My friend's mom has it. She's managed it quite well, thrombocytopenia, but and that's where the body eats the blood platelets and thinks that they're an enemy. So here's Rico's story, though, in a nutshell. I met Rico in 2001, and he was already just over a year old when I met him. And I remember at the parking lot in Norfolk, Virginia, at Norfolk Naval Base. I was in the SEAL teams, and I went to go to see him because I'd read about him, and I was looking for a dog. And this dog was so agile. The guy kind of had a lifted truck, and Rico was running around out in the parking lot of the commissary, and he's like, taps at the seat and says, "Come on, get up here." This dog jumped like 3-4 feet up in the air, up onto the seat, and was like on guard. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is an awesome dog." And didn't really get too close to him, just monitoring him at that point. And but the military family was leaving, and so they were deploying, and they couldn't take him with them. Well, Rico's original name was Peanut. I don't know why anybody would name him that. And then the second owner, this was the second owner. For a year old, he already had 2 owners, and it was because he's getting passed between military families. They had named him Lenny. So when I got him, his name was Lenny. He is not a Lenny. So I said I wanted him. I paid $300 for him. I went and got him. And I'll never forget this, folks. I I go in there, and he was wrestling around with their other dog, so I said, and the girl was crying. I felt bad, and I said, all right, don't worry. He's going to have a great life. I'm going to take great care of him. And I said, come on, let's go. I'd never really actually met this dog before. He followed me right out. I opened up the car door. He jumped in the car door. I had an Acura TL at that point. He jumped in the back seat, turned around. I get in the car, sit down. He puts his back feet are on the back seat. His front paws are on the armrest next to me. And he takes his left paw and he puts it on my shoulder. And that's how we met back in 2001. And so I put on a little Travis Tritt, and we drove off. And it was best friends from there, and he grew into be more like my son than anything. But, you know, me going to the gym every night, I'd leave or I have to go to work, and he'd start howling. So I knew I had to get another dog. I didn't plan on getting another dog. I grew up with animals my whole life, so I was always very close to dogs. So I remember I bought him this kennel, and I'm not just going to buy my dog a small kennel. I bought him a kennel that was literally like this huge, this great big kennel. That didn't really work because he would howl, and so I put him in the bed with me. So he started sleeping in the bed, and then he'd howl when I leave. So I was like, I got to get this dog a companion. So I took him to several different places, met different dogs. I let him pick out the dog. And when we walked in and we saw Jesse, well, that was it. It was just love at first sight. They were playing and wrestling. He was dominant over her. She submitted, and it was perfect. And so I bought Jessie and took her home. And for the next 13 years, they were never apart for a day, except for when he would get sick with thrombocytopenia, and she ended up having cancer years later. Now, the thing that I wanted to drive home with everybody before I finish this story, we've had a tremendous life. Jessie before she died, and Rico before she died, and since traveling this country, meeting people. They were with me every step of the way. And when I was an air marshal and I traveled back home and forth to Virginia Beach and here, they were always there waiting on me. When I went in the FBI Academy, they were always there waiting on me. I chose the apartment that I live in Manhattan so that I didn't have to go and drive long ways away, and that I'd be able to be close to them. They've had a doggy door where they could go in and out, which most people don't have in New York City. And they traveled the country with me, meeting people. They went on surveillance with me. I used to take them on surveillance with me when I was in the FBI so that I could, if I needed to walk up and get somebody's license plate or see where follow somebody, I could just take the dogs with me on a leash because they went where they were highly trained. They'd do whatever I asked them to. So who would ever suspect, a guy walking a little bitty dog and another dog up, and picking up poop, supposedly, while I was getting a license plate? They never suspected that. So worked out real well. They would go to work with me every day for well over a year. They worked with me when I was in the Bureau doing surveillance. And, but going back to 2004, when this dog was one of the fastest dogs I've ever seen, great workout partner. He and Jesse both. We used to run about 8 miles every day, at least 5 days a week. They would run the whole way, come home and wrestle while I passed out. And just amazing dogs. Well, one day Rico gets this big bruise on his side, and I'm like, what the heck is that? And it's one of those things where you're just throwing a curveball in life. We go in there, he gets his platelets measured, which is what causes the clotting in blood. And their blood is exactly like ours. He's a Jack Russell. And their blood is just like ours. They have same amount of red blood cells, white blood cells, and blood platelets. 250,000 blood platelets is normal. Anything below that, it starts to get a little worrisome. He had about 90,000 at that point. So we took him in. They put him on medication, thought they had it under control. And what happened was, I'm not going to go off on the vet. Vets make mistakes. The truth is, veterinary medicine is not like regular medicine. It's almost experimental all the time because the studies that they have is like 30 dogs in a study, not like 100,000 or 1,000,000 people. It's like, very small numbers. So, but anyway, regardless, they overdosed him on this medication, and it caused him to have a bleeding ulcer. So, which means we couldn't give him the other medication he was on. So his blood platelets crashed. He couldn't clot, and he was bleeding out through his stomach. We took him down to in Raleigh, UNC, University of North Carolina, Raleigh, or no, it's NC State University in Raleigh, where they have an incredible veterinary school there. And we took him down there, and I wish I could remember the vet's name, but we go in there, and they did this huge checkup on him, and he was in bad shape. He was deteriorating very quickly. And the vet came outside, and she said, okay, here's the deal. I said, just tell me what it is. I'm still feeling froggy. I had just gotten out of the SEAL teams, and I was working at that point. Actually, I'd been out of the SEAL teams and the Air Marshals. At that point, I was a contractor. And I said, tell me, just be honest. Don't beat around the bush. This dog was like my son already at this point. And she said, well, it's 50-50. Okay. She said, but most people quit at this point because you're going to incur a lot of money. And I said, well, if we go forward with the money and we go forward and we do this, she said it's 50-50. I said, all right, good. We're going to go with the 50%. Let's do it. And so they just started working with this dog. They, because he was losing so much blood, and his body was eating its blood platelets, they were going to try to give blood transfusions to stop the bleeding, or so they could get the blood platelets up. And it worked a couple times. And eventually, after almost 2 weeks, he had 3 blood transfusions and had been living off of synthetic blood for over a week. And he had only about 3% red blood cells. Normally you have over 30% red blood cells. That's what carries your oxygen. He had no measurable blood platelets, so his blood was like water. And he couldn't stand up. He would run out of breath. I had to leave for a day and then come back there because I had to go give a course. I came back, and when I came into the ICU, he stood up, wagged his tail, and then collapsed in my arms because he couldn't keep a breath. So, but the funny thing was, I would carry him outside so he could relieve himself, and wherever Jesse went to the bathroom, I'd carry him over there. He'd sniff it, and even though he couldn't stand up, he would still urinate on her urine. So he was that dominant that even at the edge of death, he would still be a dominant dog. So they were working on this. They could not get any of these blood transfusions to take. His body kept rejecting them. So I did what I always do in these circumstances. I turned to God, and I was flipping through the Bible trying to figure out, you remember in iRobot, that this isn't the way God thinks, but this is the way I felt that night. In iRobot, where Will Smith is talking to the image of the doctor that created these robots, and he says, that's the wrong question. And so he asked it a different way, and he'd say, that's the wrong question. Finally, he gets the question right, and he said, that is the correct question. And so I kept looking through the Bible saying, what am I not asking? What is going on? What am I being taught here? Because I believe I'm being taught. And so I go to Matthew, the book of Matthew. I'm sorry, Mark, Mark chapter 9. And I'm reading through that, and I get to the point where this boy's father goes up to Jesus, and he tells him that his son is possessed by a demon, and the demon often throws him in the fire or tries to drown him in the water and will make him convulse. And so Jesus says, bring the boy to me. And so they brought the boy to him, and when the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into convulsions. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus, and this is the important part of when I was reading this, and I want you all to know this. I think this is one of the reasons why Rico's been through all this stuff. Remember, this was in 2004. This wasn't yesterday. This was in 2004. This dog is dying. He's sitting in there. He's had 3 blood transfusions. He has no red blood cells, no measurable blood platelets, can't get a breath, bleeding from his stomach, coming out of his rectum. Been living on synthetic blood for almost a week. And I read this verse. They brought the boy, and when he saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has he been like this?" The father says, "From childhood," he answered. It has often thrown him into the fire and water to kill him, but if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. That's what the father said. And that's what I'd been saying. And Jesus said, if you can, everything is possible for him who believes. Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe. Help me with my unbelief. When Jesus saw that a crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the impure spirit. You deaf and mute spirit, he said, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. They thought he was dead. Jesus lifted him up to his feet and he stood. I went home, or I was already at the Red Roof Inn is where I was staying. And I got down on my knees in 2004 with this dog dying, been in ICU for 2 weeks and nothing had worked. And I got down on my knees and I said, Lord, I believe in you. This wasn't a long prayer. I said, I believe in you. Help me with my unbelief. Heal this dog. He means that much to me. I got in the bed. I went to sleep. And then we got a call from the vet saying, you could come get him. And I thought they meant he's dead. But one of the transfusions that night had worked. And within 24 hours of me saying that prayer, that dog was back home in Virginia Beach, bathed because he stunk like crazy, and happy as could be. And from that point forward, he's had a couple of bouts along the way with thrombocytopenia, but that's long since gone away. We're very careful. I'm very careful with what I gave him for shots and any type of foreign substance that went in his body. He eats a raw diet. He always got tons of exercise, and here he is, over 17 years later. So that's the power of prayer. That's the power of prayer. And the reality is, folks, this country was founded by faithful people. It's being subverted by unholy people. You can call me crazy. You can say whatever you want. In the end, I'll know a couple things. I know I get to see my dogs again. And I know that I'll know that I did my part in trying to make this country great again. So I challenge all of you to do the same. So hopefully we'll have Rico with us for, a bit longer. Hopefully he'll be with us a lot longer. Hopefully that tumor will grow slow or miraculously will reverse itself and it'll realize it's in the wrong body, that this body that it's in is a pretty badass little dog. So let's go to the truth zone. And I want y'all to think about that. Make sure that you say your prayers tonight. And I hope you don't go to your kids and kiss them and say, I'm sorry, but we failed you. good luck. I hope you guys can do better than we did. I hope you don't go tell your kids that. I hope you go kiss them tonight and say, we're going to do what needs to be done. All right, we'll shift gears. Folks, listen, I know I talk about the team effort a lot, and I know I do this goofy thing called the Truth Zone, and people laugh about it because I put music together and all of it, but listen, I got a passion, folks. I got a passion for teamwork and a passion for unity. I got a passion, folks, for freedom. I don't want to live in a communist country. I don't believe in a satanic, godless utopia. I believe that we live in a country that is founded on Judeo-Christian principles, but it allows other people to worship what they want to worship. I believe we grew up in a country that was established on a constitution that empowers people, that ensures freedom and true equality. Not this nonsense of you must accept me, you must respect me. This country was not founded on a sense of oppression and forcing others to like you. This country was founded by men that said, I don't care whether or not you like me. Will you stand with me? I don't care. I'm sure the founding fathers thought, I don't care whether or not your feelings are hurt or things aren't fair. Are you willing to stand up for freedom? Are you willing to serve your fellow man? Are you willing to serve this country? If you do, things will be fair enough for you to accomplish things. Things will be equal enough for you to have the opportunities that you seek out. And you, every American citizen, will be able to achieve whatever you set your mind to if you work together. That's what the founding fathers thought. This nonsense that's going on right now, where people think that saying hello is abusive, that praying is weird, that think that they've been injured because you have a different opinion than they do. The type of nonsense, nonsensical road that we are traveling down will only be defeated if people stand together. And if God will bless a small dog because he loves me, and I'm nothing special, folks. If he thinks that much of me to make that one thing happen that would change the rest of my life, I can guarantee you that he hears you. And if you have the will to unite, he will supply the people, the patriots. But you have to stand together, and you have to be willing, folks. You have to be willing to ask, and you have to be willing to put yourself out just a little bit. Sometimes it may be a lot. Let those of us that decide to go all in, let us go all in. If you don't have the time and you have a family and you can't go all in, let us go all in. But stand by our side. Help with the funding. If you have a special talent, put it out there, and we'll make a change. I'm Jonathan Gillum. Rico is over there asleep, and I'll see you tomorrow on The Experts. The truth has arrived.